Welcome to episode 2 of Swells of Change. Today I'm going to be starting my first in a series of weekly recaps on Mondays that will cover content that I've been looking at the prior week and kind of encapsulating that in a way that's kind of a summary that I can share with you guys that will hopefully give you some ideas and resources you can look at in the areas of mind, body, spirit, everything that Swells of Change is all about. So without further ado, I'm going to kick this off. I'm going to try to keep this short today. I say that because I did 2 dry runs of this yesterday and it went well over 20 minutes. And I know we all have a kind of a short attention span with everything going on in our lives. So I'm going to try to keep this around 10 minutes. So without further ado, let's get going. I'm going to take this back a couple weeks because my weekly recap actually includes more than just last week. It includes 2 to 3 weeks worth of stuff that I wanted to go back over. So I'm going to go all the way back to the week before I had my surgery, which was just over 2 weeks ago now, my back surgery. And I attended a long weekend seminar, a Tony Robbins seminar, something I haven't done in 2 decades. It was well worth it. It was a lot of fun. And because he can't do these large seminars in person anymore, he's found a way through technology and in partnership with Zoom to do these amazing interactive seminars that make you really feel like you're there and a part of it. And the seminar went from 7 a.m. in the morning until 6, 7 o'clock at night. I learned a ton. This weekend seminar, that weekend seminar was called the World Summit, and it had speakers as diverse as Trent Shelton, Jamie Kern-Lima, Pete Vargas, Brendan Bouchard, all these people that really are really talented, telling their story about how they came from where they are to where they are now. And the goal of the weekend seminar was to share their knowledge and inspire others to share their own message and find their message. So that's a lot of the reason why I'm doing this now, is because of what I gained out of that. So it was really worth it. It was a lot of fun. And if you haven't ever done a Tony Robbins seminar, if you haven't read his content book stuff, I highly encourage you to check it out. And there's a link in my show notes to check out his website to find out more about his stuff, especially with all of his virtual stuff. If you need something to do on the weekend, get inspired, I know he has some upcoming seminars. So that was piece 1. The second thing was that Monday, right after that seminar, I had just finished my level 2 certification from Precision Nutrition. I did my first level Precision Nutrition certification a couple of years ago. It was at your own pace, and it took me, because of how busy I was at the time, well over a year to finish. But it was amazing. But I had run into somebody that encouraged me to go after the level 2 because of what you gain out of it. And this person really set it up as a high-level master's level course in nutrition and nutrition coaching. And so I checked it out. I signed up, and it was a year-long program. And so you had to go by their timelines. We wrote lots of papers and really took and applied knowledge that we had learned not only in our level 1, but new knowledge that we were learning at this time, and how to apply that to all different kinds of people. And, I think the biggest 3 things that I got out of that for myself was, in the end, nutrition coaching is an art form. And with that said, number 2 is everyone is different. There isn't a single, I will say there are ways that you can model a recipe, if you will, of how to gain weight, lose weight, take control of your health, that can be applied to all, but the nuances that go along with helping somebody achieve their goals is very individual. And because everyone has so many different inputs in their life, stressors, their activity levels, their hormones, whether they're male or female, where they come from, all these different things can play a role in their health. And so it really dove deep into that, and it was absolutely fascinating. And I put a link to that also in my show notes, so you can check out what that PN level 2 looks like. Because if you're in the nutrition world, I highly encourage you to check it out. It's definitely worth it. At the end of that week, I had back surgery. I had a herniated bulging disc in my L5-S1, and I had to get that repaired. I tried to go all year without doing it and trying to avoid surgery, but it just didn't work out for me. The surgery was successful, but I don't know if you have ever had the experience of going into something in your life expecting a certain outcome. After the event, you come out of it and it's not what you expected. Because I went into surgery thinking I was coming out a new person and I was going to walk out of that surgery center and ready to go. I walked out in a walker like an old man, but I'm doing a lot better now. I can stand, and I'm doing short walks now that to help me get better. But yeah, I have to constantly remind myself that healing isn't a competition, and I got to take it slow. So that's what I'm doing now. So this last week, on my reading list this last week, and I'll try to do this every week in the same kind of similar fashion, I've been reading Jane Goodall's book, A Reason for Hope. And I talked about recently in an Instagram review that I did of a book called Set Free that I'm really captivated by people's stories and the life that they lived, and how that life changed and the decisions they made to get to where they are now in life. And Jane Goodall, if you don't know who she is, spent 40 years, or let's see, 1960, 40, 50, that's 60 years studying chimpanzees in the Gombe in Tanzania. And she was one of the very first women in the field to do this. It talks a lot about her what she went through, because she's lived a really long life growing up, starting in England, being born in 1934, and then just going after her passion of loving animals and wanting to go to Africa to see and be a part of it herself. How she did that, how she got there, having to deal with being a woman at that time in the very late 50s and early 60s, and also not having an education to do the studies like orthodox science wanted it to be done. So it's super fascinating. I'm not quite done with it yet, but I look forward to doing a book review on that. Jane Goodall's A Reason for Hope. Another book I read, and I actually finished last week, is called Life Writer by Laird Hamilton. I actually bought this book because Laird Hamilton is somebody that I've always been captivated by. Even though he kind of rubbed me the wrong way growing up as a surfer, and looking up to somebody like that was really leading kind of the cutting edge of big wave surfing and the lifestyle he lived. Just a true waterman. The book itself, I think, is great for those that are intrigued by him and his story already. I think that, I don't know that I would recommend it to just about anyone, but it's a great peek into his philosophy, how he thinks, and how he lives now, and why he is who he is, how he grew up in Hawaii, and the kind of trouble he got into, and how he had to kind of prove himself. So really fascinating story. Again, I don't know that I'd recommend it for everybody, but if you're interested in Laird Hamilton, it's worth picking up and reading. You could probably read it in a day and a half at most. So now we move on to a little bit more of the meat, and the couple of things that I've been listening to in the last week are number one is The Longevity Paradox by Dr. Stephen Gundry. Dr. Stephen Gundry is a really fascinating cardio surgeon. He's spent the last 40 years of his life being a heart surgeon, and he writes his books from this perspective and what he's seen and experienced. And it's so fascinating. So he's kind of moved his way out of heart surgery, I should say. And he's now the director and founder of the International Heart and Lung Institute, as well as the Center for Restorative restorative medicine in Palm Springs and in Santa Barbara. And his goal now is to take kind of all of the things he's learned in medicine and some of the new philosophies around healing to heal people in a new way. So it's fascinating. Now, I haven't finished the book, and I should say audiobook, because I started it as an audiobook and I had to actually get the physical book so I could kind of follow along and make some notes, because it's deep. But what he does do is he ties a nice bow on his philosophy in a way that's very accessible to the average person. This can also make it that, or it can also make it so that it's so accessible, it's captivating in a way that you could get yourself into trouble by just falling down the rabbit hole and just believing everything he says. And I'm not saying you can't believe him. I'm just saying in the field of nutrition, and I know he comes with a really incredible background, is that we still know very little. So what I'm talking about specifically in his philosophy is that he believes that the gut microbiome is the key to health and longevity. And the key impact of gut health is the ingestion of lectins. And lectins are the protein that protect a plant. So if you think of a bean, or almost all plants have lectins in them. Gluten is a lectin. You can think of it as a defense mechanism for the plant to protect it against insects and other things. Now, his philosophy is that lectins, and through research he's done, lectins actually create a symptom called leaky gut syndrome that can create all kinds of wreak havoc in the body, but also create all kinds of disorders and can lead to disease in the rest of the body. So I haven't finished the book, like I said, but it's leading down a very interesting path, and I think that I'll be interested to see on how he concludes the book, along with what looks to be a fairly restrictive diet plan, or an eating plan, I guess I should call it. So it'll be really interesting to see what he's got to say about that. I also put some links for his work in the show notes if you want to check that out. The second piece I'm listening to is a podcast, actually. I'd never heard of this podcast. It's called the My Fit Podcast, hosted by DJ Hillier, who is a fitness coach. He is a CrossFit Games athlete. Found this totally by accident, but the reason I came across it was because I was looking for something specific around muscle-centric healing or health. And I found this podcast because he interviews Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon is a functional medicine doctor. She's board certified in family medicine, and she also has a doctorate in osteopathy, I guess is how you say it. She owns her own clinical practice in New York, and also has a degree in nutrition as well. She's very well versed. And she also plays in the world of fitness. And if I remember correctly, she did a lot of bodybuilding type events, and she's very big into building muscle, resistance training, etc. So some of the topics she covers that I think were really important in that is this kind of muscle-centric view to prevent aging. So interestingly enough, and I'll go back a second, is that I didn't mean to actually listen to this and the longevity paradox that I was reading by Dr. Stephen Gundry at the same time, because they seem to contradict each other in several different areas. So, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but the point being is that she talks about muscle-centric health, and she claims that the muscle is the organ of longevity, and she states that it's the largest endocrine organ, and I think muscle is not really considered an endocrine organ. So it's really interesting to hear her say that. And she also talks about how the fundamental focus of medicine is it's problem focused, or pathology. So pathology focused. So her key is looking at high quality protein, in certain amounts, and then getting that distributed throughout your day in a very specific way, and leading to muscle growth along with resistance training that will help prevent sarcopenia. So the sarcopenia is the loss of muscle mass in aging. So she talks a lot about this. She talks a lot about her her work in working with the elderly. So her philosophy is that everybody should be eating at least 1 gram of protein for every pound of body weight. So 150-pound man or woman, because she says it's not sex dependent, should be eating at minimum that, and should care highly about lean body mass. And the reason she says that is because the science that has been done around the heavier you are, the more obese you are, the more at risk for long-term disease you're at. So again, the work she's doing is really fascinating. I've listened to a couple of her podcasts, and I actually dove a little bit deeper into some of her work that you can find on her YouTube channel. I think one of the key things that I heard her say that was really fascinating for me is that there are so many arguments and fights in the world of nutrition and health, and she says that we've got to stop fighting about this and start helping each other. But I also see how difficult this can be, because even for her, she has a very specific look at the world of nutrition. And then I take someone like Dr. Stephen Gundry, who has a very different look, and even take something as simple as he believes we don't need so much protein, that we only need 0.3 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass. So a very different view. So it'll be really interesting to see. And I think, like Dr. Gabrielle Lyon says, the key here is that we probably are somewhere in the middle. And what I mean by that is that for every book that's written on a subject like this, there is somebody that's written the exact opposite and believes the exact opposite vehemently. And so if we could meet somewhere in the middle and guide people in the right way for them, we will be winning on all sides until we can grow the nutrition education and science to a point that it can kind of stand on its own a little bit more and have less of this. It's very young, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So regardless, I think it's worth a listen if you're into that kind of work. It's nice, and it's worth a listen. So besides that, I've been watching, over the weekend I watched the CrossFit Games. I haven't been able to do CrossFit in quite a while with my back injury, and it was fun to watch, and it reminded me why I love the sport so much, and the community that it fosters within the individual gyms. And so I look forward to eventually getting back to that, and coaching again, one of my favorite things to do. Some ideas that I've been looking at this week. As a matter of fact, this morning I found something brand new. That this was actually released end of September, I believe it was. A new breakthrough at the University of Calgary with the potential to prevent and reverse Alzheimer's disease. They have found that limiting the open time of a channel called a ryanodine receptor, which acts like a gateway to cells located in the heart and brain, reverses and prevents progression of Alzheimer's disease in animal models. It's really fascinating. I don't think it's for everybody, but I think what it tells me is that we're coming to a point in our world where these things are going to start to become available, and I have great hope that we will start finding cures for diseases that have been ailing a lot of us for a long, long time. And I think even more importantly is that this helps for those that already are suffering from it, hopefully. but more so, how do we prevent it? So I'm hoping that out of this comes, how do we prevent these things from even happening in the first place? Besides that, next week I'm going to be looking at some new things. I kind of like to take the week as it goes and see where I'm going to fall as far as what I'm going to share. But I think next week I'm kind of looking right now at possibly diving a little bit deeper into the argument in nutrition around, it revolves around the models of obesity. And that is the SoC model, which is the calories in, calories out model. And then the carb insulin model of obesity. So more to come on that. I might do it next week. I might do it the week after. I haven't decided yet. Or I might do something a little bit more about the role of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates in our diet, and how you can take advantage of some of the cool science and fact that is out there right now in those areas to help you live a healthier, happier life. I hope you enjoyed this. This is 20 minutes now that I've been talking. I meant to do this in 10 minutes. That's how the cookie crumbles, I guess. So hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to coming back next week and maybe refining this a little bit for you guys. So thanks for joining me, and hit a like down there and help me grow this channel. And if you have any thoughts and ideas, or need clarity on something, or you'd like to see something in a future video, let me know. Put it in the comments and I'll make sure I add it to my list. I'll see you soon.